I'm a co-author of the BIM Handbook. I'm not the only one. Together with Raphael Sachs, Gangli, and Luciana Burdi, we have been the author of the 4th edition. So I don't know about you guys, but when I started investigating BIM more than 15 years ago, the BIM Handbook was a reference for me, and it was already in the 2nd edition. So now we are on the 4th edition, and Chuck Eastman, that is considered the founder of BIM, was the main author of the BIM Handbook. So with the quick speed of in technology and innovation, there was a need to update the 3rd version to a new version that became the 4th edition, and I was really honored to receive the invite to join the author let's say board. And what we did is that we review the different chapters, update with the new content. We introduce new case studies based on different typology of project and scales.
Hi Marzia, welcome to the Digital Construction Podcast. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you for the invitation.
So today, in this episode, we sit down with Marzia Bolpagni. She is the head of BIM International at Maze and author of the BIM Handbook. With Marzia, we are going to explore the evolution of BIM standards and the impact of ISO 19650. Marzia also led the development of ISO 7817 Part 1. We will also talk about what's ahead for digital construction in the UK and beyond. I'm very excited for this episode, but before we start, Marzia, I have an icebreaker for you. What's the best piece of advice you have ever received in your career?
It's a very good question. I think one of the best advice that I receive is to pick my battles, because as an engineer, such a person that would like to have everything perfect, well organized, and so on. And then I learned in my career that instead it's important to focus on priorities and to select the battles that is worth. So that is something that really helped me then to prioritize and to focus on different tasks and situation or something that is important to achieve, and let it go instead what is not so relevant. And it's okay that it's not perfect.
Yeah, that's very good. It helps with prioritization. Sometimes we spend so much time working on things that are not necessarily a priority. One of the things that actually is a priority, I think, for the BIM industry is the concept of LOD. And you work in, you're an engineer, but you also work in research. You do so many different things. But can you explain the concept of LOD and what's the difference with the level of information need? That I've seen you talk about this a lot in your post on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so back in I think that it was 2015, 2016, I was doing my PhD, so I was doing research, and one of the topic was clients' requirements, how clients can explain what they would like to achieve from the building information model process. And the LOD came, very often. And I started to investigate this, and I found that there are so many different variety of this concept. Some people call it level of detail, level of development, grade, level of information. I created a blog post that is called The Many Phases of LOD in 2016 that went viral, really, because I explained that there is not just one definition, but different organization, different institution, and different countries. They have been defined this concept in a different way. But basically, coming back to your question, what it is, so it is a way to explain how much let's say graphical detail we would like to include in our 3D models, okay? So how much complex is the geometry following the progression of our project. And besides the geometrical aspect, the LOD topics also has been introducing the concept of level of information. So which attributes should be attached and should be linked, let's say, with the geometry. So this is the very basic concept. And the level of information need, as we will talk also today, instead is a framework that takes into account not just the geometrical and alphanumerical aspect, but also the documentation. And also, before defining what you want to achieve, ask you to think about the prerequisites, so the purpose, why you need the information, when you need the information, who needs the information, because based on different purposes, if you think about energy analysis or structural analysis in the same phase, maybe the geometry looks a little bit different, the attributes are different, and so on. So it's really thinking with the end in mind. So this is let's say, what is behind the level of information need, and I'm happy to expand later as well.
Yeah, no, very good point. And what do you think, how can, from your point of view, teams deliver projects with the right LOD from your point of view?
Yeah, so I think that one of the, let's say, main problem is that the delivery teams, they don't receive a good brief. So they don't receive it from a client or from maybe, let's think about if it's a subcontractor, from the lead designer or the lead contractor. They don't receive clear information and indication of what they need to produce and how. So that is first of all, is a gap. And one of the main issue is that they just think about their purpose, their own, let's say, goals. They don't think about the project goal and what is the client goal or the end user goal. So we end up having, for example, model created during the design. They're not fit for purpose for construction. So what is happening when the construction starts? You need to start again from the beginning, and that is a little bit of waste of time and money and so on. The ideal scenario would be to think about different purposes, different scenario first, and then to be able to then filter the information based on the different needs and so on. There is still a limitation sometimes with the tools and so on, but now with the AI and so on, I think that we will more and more going in that direction to have a sort of consistent flow of the information. But my suggestion, again, coming back to your question, how a delivery team can help, my suggestion that start with the end in mind, start about which are the project goal, what you would like to achieve, and then to define the sort of correct level of information, in this case, level of information need that help you to achieve the project goals.
Yeah, that's definitely a good framework. And thinking about it, the why, I hear all the time teams that work and sometimes they don't channel their energy in the right way, and they end up wasting energy and time and resources. So it's good to think about the why and structure it the same way you did it. One of the things I would like to talk about with you is this ISO 7817 Part 1. We don't often have an opportunity to speak with people that actually think about the standards and build the standard and lead the standard like you did. So it's a good opportunity now to speak to you, because you led the development of these standards. Can you give us a quick overview of what ISO 7817 Part 1 is and why it matters?
Yeah, so first of all, it is an international standard that has been published in 2024, so last year, but it is based on the European standard that was published in 2020. Because in Europe, first there was an interest to standardize this concept, because in different countries there were, as I said, slightly different understanding on application. So in Europe there was the will to create a common framework, and when this standard has been published in 2020, that also at the international level, there was also an interest to then adopt it also at the international level. So the term level of information need is not something that I created myself, but actually it is in another standard that is the ISO 19650, that is a standard of information management using BIM that probably most of you are already familiar. And that is the first time that the concept of level of information need has been introduced. So in the ISO 19650, and what is mentioned in that standard is that the aim of the level of information need is to avoid to having too much information or too little information, because also having too much information, as we said, is not cost effective, is not good. So when you need to do, for example, structural analysis, the first thing that you need to do is to clean everything, because there is too much information, it's too complex. I think that probably some of you find yourself in this situation, and instead the idea of the level of information need is to have the right information at the right time for the purposes that has been agreed. So that is really about having better information that can help to build a better future and to be lean. That is what is behind the level of information need and the standard ISO 7817 part 1.
That's very interesting, and I'm very curious to know what was your personal journey in leading the development of this standard, because we never have an insider view of what's going on when people write the standards. Can you share a little bit with us?
Yeah. I joined in 2016. As I mentioned, everything started with my research, and Thomas Libich, I don't know if you the name rings any bell, but is considered the father of IFC, Industry Foundation classes. So he noticed my work and he asked me to join the European Standardization Committee. As you can imagine, I was very young and I didn't know anything about how to write standard, basically, but I was really patient and really interested about this topic and really wanted to standardize this. So the year after, he asked me to lead a group. So the first thing for me was as I used to do in research, to do a literature review to understand what other countries were doing. And that was quite interesting because we found out, for example, that in Luxembourg, they had very advanced requirements on the level of information need. And they let's say on the LOD topic that was at that time. They introduced not just the geometrical part, but the alphanumerical as well, and then introduce also the documentation. So because still the documents are still an important part of the process, if we like it or not. So that it was the first starting point. So understanding the different application, and then we look also, for example, as GIS, what other domain we're doing on this, and then we work together, bringing best practice from different countries, analyzing what was working and what instead was not working, and is the reason why this concept of purpose came immediately. Everyone will say, okay, what is not working with LOD is that it's not clear what you want to achieve and why you are asking for the information. So we needed to start defining the prerequisite, why you need the information, when you need the information, who is asking, because the fire engineer and instead the architect or landscape architect in the same point of time might have different requirements. So it's important then to identify those different personas and what they need, and also which are the objects. That is also quite interesting because the concept of LOD was always, let's say, most of the time linked or the entire project. So we say the architectural model LOD 300, okay, or components. So the door LOD 300 or the light LOD 100 and so on. And instead in our standard, we say that the object really depends on the breakdown structure. So the object can be the entire asset, infrastructure, building, but also can be an assembly, can be a system. If you think about let's say MEP and so on, requirements often are at system level, not at object level. No, probably Andrea, you know better than myself, but it's important to have this flexibility of assigning requirements at different, let's say, in different parts of the breakdown structure. So that is a little bit. So coming back to how we work, so taking into account best practice, working together, experts from different nationalities were bringing their expertise, and is really a work of finding compromise. Is the reason why I was saying at the beginning, decide which battles you want to pick, because there is something that you need to let it go in order to make sure that the standard is progressing, and you need to, always, it's not that you can win all the battles and you cannot pretend as a leader that the standard is going in the direction that you always want. You need to take into account all the different, let's say, point of view and so on. So that is, but then I'm very proud of the result and how the standard now is implemented also at international level.
It's very fascinating to hear the way you think about the standards, because I often speak with people that deliver projects, but you bring a level of abstraction, but at the same time needs to be very practical. So it's very interesting how you have to reconcile these two things together. We mentioned that there is a part 1 that is already available, but part 2 and part 3 are coming. If I'm not wrong, what can we expect? What can we expect from these new parts of the series that are coming?
Yeah, part 2 is a guidance for application. So taking into account the different type of project, different size, different scenario, we are being asked to provide more guidance. So that is something that we are working on, and it should be published next year. And then it's the same for part 3. So part 3 instead is a data schema for software developers to have a schema that enable machine interpretable level of information need. Because another thing that we found out as a gap in the industry is that you define your requirements and your LOD requirements in Word, in PDF. If you are lucky, now fortunately there are tools such as Plannerly that have a sort of database, okay? But still the majority in the industry, they still use a traditional way of defining your requirements. And then you have a very digitalized deliverable of models with scripting and so on. And there is a lack between how we specify requirements and how then we deliver the information. So the idea of part 3 is to have a schema that can help then to do quality assurance, to check that what has been required has been then implemented. So that is about part 3. So watch this space.
That's great. Can't wait to see the new publication. You're also a very busy person. Like, it was very hard for me to write the introduction and mention all the things you work on. And one of the things you do is you are a NEMA ambassador. And can you share with us what NEMA is and how you can help shape the digital build environment?
Yeah, so NEMA is a not-for-profit, volunteer-led virtual organization that promotes information management best practice, helping to support the digital transformation across the built and management environment in the UK and also international. It started in 2016 as UK BIM Alliance. Probably some of you heard about that after the mandate in the UK of using building information modeling. The UK BIM Alliance created the UK BIM framework, so a guidance on how to implement the ISO 19650 in the UK in particular. So is a community of experts that work in order to create material. You can find videos, free available guidance on how to implement information management in your project in a practical way. And in 2022, there was a change from UK BIM Alliance to NEMA, that in Greek means thread, and because we realized that it's not just about BIM, but digital transformation is wider, is about digital twins, is about AI, information management. So that is the reason why now it's called NEMA. And I suggest you to subscribe to the newsletter, watch the videos on YouTube, explore the website. We move all the guidance from PDF to an hybrid database in Morta. So it's also quite nice to navigate. You can also search for information using a sort of AI application. So then you can ask questions, you can query the database. So yeah, is a very useful source of information that at the moment is available for everyone.
That's great. And another resource that you have created is the BIM Handbook. again, you're very busy. You have done so many things, and this is another interesting one. Can you share with us what is the BIM Handbook that you wrote and how it can help the BIM industry?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm a co-author of the BIM Handbook. I'm not the only one. Together with Raphael Sachs, Gangli, and Luciana Burdi, we have been the author of the 4th edition. So I don't know about you guys, but when I started investigating BIM more than 15 years ago, the BIM Handbook was a reference for me, and it was already in the 2nd edition. So now we are on the 4th edition, and Chuck Eastman, that is considered the founder of BIM, was the main author of the BIM Handbook. So with the quick speed of in technology and innovation, there was a need to update the 3rd version to a new version that became the 4th edition, and I was really honored to receive the invite to join the author let's say board. And what we did is that we review the different chapters, update with the new content. We introduce new case studies based on different typology of project and scales. An example that I like, for example, is a case study from Denmark on how to introduce BIM with a low budget, because there is this idea that is always needs to be very expensive for larger projects and so on. And also we took example in different parts of the world, from America, Asia, Europe, and Middle East, so really to take a global point of view and to understand how BIM is applied in different area for infrastructure, for buildings. We introduce the concept of digital twins for construction, for facility management, so how the sensor can be linked to the digital representation. Is a topic that is still not let's say, use in every project. So it's something that we wanted to select the best practice and to share with our audience. And also we put different new standards and new processes that we found interesting. Another case study that I want to share, if you're interested, is that an Italian company, Focchi, how they are implementing the digital workflow for a facade for large scales. Probably I don't know if you work and you know them. But yeah, it was quite interesting to speak with the different experts and see how manufacturers, fabricators, not just the let's say designers and contractors are implementing BIM, and also a focus on clients.
Yeah, that's a very interesting handbook, and I encourage everybody to have a look at that and see if they found anything that can help them learn something new about this industry. You have done so much. You've done books and papers, and you are a contributor to the development of literature. You are a speaker. There are so many things you've done. But what's one piece of work you are particularly proud of?
I think that yeah, it's interesting because my profile is quite a mix. So I work most of my time in the industry. I help clients international to set their strategy and implement. But I really like also, as you said, knowledge sharing, research, and so on. Regarding publication, the work on the level of information need, of course, is the work that I'm most proud of. But if I need to mention another one, a few years ago, I had the privilege also to lead a research group that is called the European Council of Computing in Construction, and we create a free available dashboard. Maybe I can leave you also the link, so if the listener want also to find more information, they can, on how to search for all the standards regarding BIM. We keep that updated every 6 months. So then is a way to, because the comment that I often receive is, oh, there are so many standards, I don't understand which one are relevant for me and which one can help my job. So then we created this database. So it was a research work, and then we also developed a tool and the free available dashboard. So that is also something that it was a really interesting teamwork, and I'm very proud that I've been leading this effort, and now is expanding, and other people are continuing leading and working on that.
Yeah, that's very nice. And I think many people are working on projects every day, think about this evolution. Like they often have been requesting for new standards and new rules. So just to coordinate everybody, I've been in so many conferences and panels where people were asking for standards just to make sure that everybody's aligned. But I just want to know what's your point of view about, like, how can you do formal research, like how can research actually influence the everyday design on projects? How can you help with that?
It's a very good question, and it's a topic that is very close to me, because coming from academia, and then when I joined industry, I found out that a lot of people in the industry really, they don't know about research that is happening. They don't have time. Some people, they don't care. But instead, other people that are genuinely interested to innovate, they don't go to the trusted source for research, but they maybe search on Google, and maybe they prefer to trust someone on LinkedIn instead of going to some people that are doing proper research and so on. On the other side, I found people in academia maybe that they don't collaborate enough with industry. So maybe they're doing case studies or pilot that maybe are not as advanced of something that is already happening in the industry. So this is, I'm speaking generally, of course, there are exceptions, people that are doing very advanced research and so on. But this is sort of reality. There is currently a gap, and how to fill this gap. So I believe that beside the traditional research paper that is an output that is required in academia, I encourage always especially the young researcher to then summarize, put some visual, trying to make something that is more digestible for the people in the industry that are busy. They don't have time to read maybe 8-page or 15-page of research paper. They just want to understand which was the problem and the solution, and to understand how to follow the different steps to replicate a sort of process. So there is a way to communicate in a better way that is needed, and researchers that are adopting this approach, I see that they are that are more successful, and also there is a possibility for them to start collaboration with the industry. So my advice is also from companies in the industry: do ask a university in your city, in your country, to collaborate, because most of the time there are researcher students that they are looking for problem to be solved, and in the industry we have so many problems, and in academia they are lucky to have time to solve this in a proper way. They have the knowledge and the methodology. So this collaboration is the reason why I like to go to university to speak to students and trying to help them in their thesis and so on. So if each of us can maybe think about to support one student, collaborate with the professor during the year, I think that it will be really a way to build a better future for the built environment.
Yeah, that's great. And just to change gear and talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about, which is the female representation in this industry. Unfortunately, we don't have many, but I can see that it is changing, that we have more and more women joining the industry, which is very, very nice to see. I just want to know what you think about that, and what's your what advice would you give to a young woman that want to join this industry and start working in this space?
Thank you, Andrea, for asking. My advice is really to pick a topic that is interesting for you, something that maybe you're curious, and go very deep, trying to learn from the best in the industry or in academia. So for me, it's really about skills and to be really strong in being confident in what you want then to then explore and then to implement, that help you to be confident and then to let's say to succeed. But another thing is that find the right organization, the right environment where you can flourish, because there are so many organizations that try to push back and that don't value you. Don't give up if it's maybe your first experience. Look for other, let's say, other organization, other maybe communities and network. Another topic that for me is really important is mentorship. So ask for a mentor. I've been lucky enough in my career that I've been different mentors, both female and men, and still I have, that they are helping me every day, especially when I'm struggling, to ask for a different opinion. So that is what I would suggest for the young generation, and particularly female, in order to progress in their career.
Yeah, definitely agree with you when you say find the right organization that can support that. Not all organizations support that the same way. I've been lucky to work in places where women were supported and were encouraged, and therefore they were promoted. So yeah. You need to find the right place where there is opportunity, and don't stop where, if you find barriers, just walk around that wall and find another space. This is true for men and women, but sometimes for women could be a little bit harder in this industry.
Definitely.
One last topic before the end of this episode is global trend and new things that we see all the time. I can't have an episode of this podcast without mentioning AI or without mentioning sustainability and new trends. So what do you see what trends makes you excited, and what do you think the future, what do you think we'll see in the future of digital construction?
Yeah, I mean, I like exploring trends, and usually I try just to write about these as well. I think that AI and ethics is a big trend, because it's not just about the implementation of AI, but how we implement. So I see more and more clients that they realize, okay, but are you using my data to train your, let's say, your application and so on? So more and more, it's not just client, but everyone, or just to avoid this black box approach that we put data and we get a result, but really we are not really clear of how the result is being then processed and then has been proposed then to you back. So the sort of cybersecurity and this particularly ethics together with the AI, for me, is something that it will be more and more explored. We can speak about automation, robotics. Again, is something that is, let's say, has been implemented more and more, and I see in the future, again, especially for tasks that they are quick to do, so to fill forms, to move files, or to generate something that is also something that I see. Hybrid communication, that is something that we are already experiencing after COVID. We need really to have this possibility, a flexibility of to be able to work together in person and to create the human relationship, but then at the same time to work effectively in an hybrid environment. And I really believe in this topic also, called digital minimalism, because with all the social media, and so we are so much distracted. I think that probably most of you you watch the phone daily too many times, and this is a way of addiction that we have to the technology. And the digital minimalism, instead, I think that more and more we will realize that it's important to focus and to do sort of deep work, so to let people have the time to innovate and to think differently. We needed to have this space that we are not totally immersed to the technology. That is somehow is a contradiction, because I love technology and so on, but the more that I explore this, I also realize that that is needed. So that is a little bit of trends that I see moving forward, and the increase of the importance of leadership, that is a human skill compared to the AI. We will be able to do tasks better, that we will do more and more in the next year. But the leadership is a very human skill. So how we can improve and inspire people, direct people, giving the right direction, and how we can create better leadership. I think that will be a trend in the next years.
Yeah, thanks, Marzia. We are at the end of the episode. If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Definitely on LinkedIn is the best way to find me. So you can ask for a connections. I usually prefer people that just send a message, because a lot of people maybe they send just a connection without an introduction. So if you maybe you can say you've been listening to this podcast, you're interested to get in touch. That is the best way to get in touch. Yeah.
Thank you, Marzia. This was such an insightful conversation. For our listener, please be sure that you check out the latest BIM Handbook. Follow Nima and keep exploring how standard can empower better delivery. Until next time, thank you, Marzia.
Thank you very much. Very nice to meet everyone.